So, girls, welcome!
So this is going to be really fun. It can be such a pressure to date. It's like a crazy story, but for me, this is like...
I was going to church because my parents were
No, maybe.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Girl Talk. Today we are doing things a little bit different, and we actually have two guests on the show.
Us. Yeah.
So we have brought two wonderful guys onto the show. We lost Lady and Beth, sadly. They will be back. But we have Nathaniel and Connor here joining us. And we wanted to bring them on because we thought it's really cool, obviously, hearing about us girls and our thoughts on relationships and all the different things that we've been talking about. But actually, it's really helpful, I think, also to hear what guys think and to hear their perspectives on a lot of the topics we've been covering. So we're going to start by just having a little introduction time. Connor, how old are you? And tell me a hobby. Where are you from as well? Sorry, I missed that one.
I'm 22 years old. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida, in the United States.
Yes, nice.
And a hobby of mine is reading.
Nice.
I like reading a lot.
Favorite book?
Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Cool.
Great book. That's such a great book. I'm Nathaniel. I'm 22. I'm from England, and my hobby is I just love drumming. I'm just quite musical, so yeah.
Nice.
Love that.
I'm making candles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Quite a pro at it, I hear. Yet to receive any though.
Some say.
So,
Yeah, I was just gonna say I still haven't received any of your
okay.
candles.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
I've
talk
gotten
about
a
that
few.
instead.
No pressure. Okay.
Yeah, so this is going to be really fun. I think also another thing to add is Connor is actually my boyfriend. We are dating, which is very
Nathaniel.
fitting for the topic of conversation because we're going to be talking about relationships. So to start off with, we're like going to kind of like zoom back to when we were in school. And I want to ask you guys, I think in school it's super common for there to be a lot of pressure to start relationships. So, I mean, I think
Not only pressure, though, but also desire.
Yeah.
You know, like that's also another aspect of it.
100%. So first question is, did you feel like any pressure? What, I guess just also like, what was your experience? Like, when did you have your first girlfriend in school?
Or boyfriend for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell or boyfriend.
Yeah. So for me, I remember that time in school being quite hard. I did have this desire to have a girlfriend. You know, I think that's because we're made for a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I remember also getting a lot of slack from my guy friends being like, for me, I didn't have a girlfriend, like my first girlfriend was 16 when I was 16.
Yeah.
And before that, and even after that, because that was a very short relationship, they used to call me gay and stuff. And I would feel, pretty hurt by that.
Yeah.
Because when you're young, it kind of pierces
sure.
into your heart.
It's
And
formative.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for me, that was my experience.
And you being 16, like, it's quite funny because you were like, oh yeah, did that seem like it was late in life for you to have your first girlfriend being 16?
To be honest, no.
Okay.
That seemed pretty kind of like, it seemed pretty early, to be honest.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to get married when I was like 24. Let's say. Something like that.
Coming up quick.
Come on.
You're like, oh, hold on.
We've got 2 years back. But yeah, for me, that was pretty early.
Yeah, okay. Because it's interesting because I think for some people when they hit 16 having a first boyfriend or girlfriend, it comes across as like, oh, that's like quite late. For some people, they were like bullied maybe even a little bit before that by their friends being like, oh, come and hurry up. And then for others of us, that probably sounds quite early to have a boyfriend or girlfriend at 16.
Yeah.
I did not have a boyfriend at 16. My first boyfriend was when I was 18, but I remember being 14, 15 in school. And even at that stage, I was already feeling a kind of like pressure from my friends to be like, oh, why aren't you dating anyone? Like, is there anyone you're interested in?
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends had already had multiple relationships by that point as well.
Yeah. I think for me, like growing up in the town that I did, everybody, like a lot of people got married super young and started a relationship when they were 16. And so for me, I had that pressure. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have a boyfriend. Like really, my parents never pushed me to like, you know, you need to be married, you need to get a boyfriend. No, my parents always advocated, you need to like wait, you know, till you feel like you're ready. But I think a lot of my friends were in a relationship, so I felt pressure to have a boyfriend, and I was just
Yeah.
like, what is wrong with me? All these questions go through your head, like nobody wants me, all these things. But I wasn't ready. When I think back at it, and I was just like, thank goodness I wasn't in a relationship
That's
then.
so
You
true.
know, it's just like I was not ready. I was so insecure, didn't even really love myself.
Yeah.
So how could I be with somebody,
Yeah.
like them? So yeah.
What was it like for you in school?
My first relationship, I never had an official relationship until after I had graduated school. So I wasn't
Yeah.
in a relationship until I was 19 years old. And so that being said, there was a lot of people that I would, talk with or,
Yeah.
we're chatting up when I was in high school
Yeah.
and middle school and things like that. So I definitely wasn't like just this pure set apart young one for my
Yeah.
entire like school career. But I think for me, I never necessarily got bullied or pressured, but for me, it was more of that desire all throughout
Right.
school. I had this desire. I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship, but I was not decisive enough. I wasn't committed enough. I could never make up my mind whether or not I liked this person. It was always like, oh, is there someone better? Is there someone
Yeah.
that I found more attractive? This, that, or the other
Yeah.
thing. To be fair, I didn't necessarily care too much about the hearts of the girls that I was chatting with. I was a bit of a
Dang.
menace back in the day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was kind of all over the place, but then at the same time, very afraid of what people thought. So, yeah, I never had a girlfriend, nor did I ever kiss anyone until
Yeah.
I was 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's interesting how much, I mean, like those years I think is just so pivotal. Like for me, going from 12 till 16, 17, I think it was some of the most shaping years probably of my life in
Yeah.
terms of like really stepping into who I am, into my personality,
Yeah.
into the things that I want in life. And I think some of that obviously it continues happening. Like we're all like growing and
Yes,
learning about
yeah.
ourselves
True.
now, even in like early 20s or late 20s.
Don't say my age. Do not say my
Sorry
age.
to remind you.
Okay.
But I think for me that I realized like when I look back also just like so much like immaturity on my
Yeah.
part even in that I was really set that we kind of had a family rule even that we wouldn't date until we were like 16. We set it for ourselves as kids. But we had this rule of like, let's not date till we're 16. But even before then, I think like I knew there would be people that I'd be talking to, like guys that I was speaking to who were like my friends. And I wouldn't be interested in them at all in terms of like a relationship or starting a relationship. But there was just this like desire for, I guess, like validation, for affirmation, to know that you were kind of seen, to know that you like
Yes.
someone wanted to talk to you, wanted to spend time with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I think like, yeah, I look back and I realize like I actually would, get quite close and be quite like deep with a lot of these guys,
Yeah.
like friendship wise, like in conversation, not really like honoring them
Yeah.
actually, but more just for my own benefit. And actually I had a like stage even when I was younger where I was like quite secretive about it, like.
Secretive.
Yeah, a little bit secretive. I remember there was one time where I had like my brother, it was one of my brother's friends, and he would like talk to me sometimes, and I remember we would like text, and then I had this thing where I was like, actually this kind of feels off, because I like think I like, all, like, do you know what I mean, where you're like encouraging someone, building them up.
Yeah.
And it was like he was kind of insecure, I was kind of insecure, and so then we kind of feed off of one another's insecurity
It
and
wasn't
affirming
healthy,
one
yeah.
another. And I think suddenly I had this moment where I was like, actually, like this is like my brother's friend. My brother doesn't know that I'm talking to this person. This is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm realizing I really don't like him in this way. But it's starting to feel kind of like dependent. And so I remember like writing to him and being like, actually, sorry, like I think we need to like stop talking.
Yeah.
But I hadn't told any of my family, and I remember my brother found out because he saw like an email or something. And he was so upset with me because I'd kept it this like big secret. And I do remember feeling really ashamed by that because I wanted to present it as if it was like the guy was needy, he was talking to me, I had nothing to do with it.
Putting it all on.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was that I had like a desire to be known, and like I was getting as much out of it as he was. And I think that's like, kind of immature and
Yeah,
sucky.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
for me, and what I found to be quite common, in the ages of 15, 16, 17, is that two people desire something and they want attention and affection from one
Yeah.
another. So they'll both feed into that for the other person, and it would seem as if it's going to go into a relationship.
Yeah.
Though both of them, or maybe just one of them, knows actually, I'm just doing this to receive the attention and the affection. I don't actually want to enter into a relationship.
Yeah.
And then that can actually quite hurt someone.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I
That's so
was
true.
16 years old, that was all of my interactions with women.
Yeah.
I never had good, healthy friendships with any women at that age. And all of my interactions with other, women of that age was that, like, I just wanted to get attention from you, get affection from you, but I wasn't actually decisive enough or willing enough to
be
commit
with
to you.
I think for myself, like, I remember asking the question to myself, like, like, why do you want to get into a relationship? And I remember thinking, like, I thought all my insecurities would be gone if I got into a relationship. It would just solve all my problems. And then I got into a relationship, those insecurities came with me, and it was a very toxic relationship.
Yeah.
So, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean life is all great or, you're fulfilled,
Yeah.
Very
And I
true.
really thought that. And I think that's why you really need to know yourself and just figure out you before getting into those relationships.
That's such a great thing. I just want to like highlight that, like check in your heart, like why am I doing this? Why am I wanting to be in a relationship with another person?
Yeah.
And it is that half-heartedness that I definitely agree with, Connor, that boys and girls alike have of just not wanting a relationship for relationship's sake.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no actual real depth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when I'm like 15-year-old, I didn't really know who I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Like now I reflect as a 22-year-old guy, I'm like, man, I've changed so much, and I'm actually growing into the man that I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
It's so different,
I think it's important also at that age to ask, what is the aim of this relationship?
Yeah.
Because I think as a 22-year-old now, my aim would be marriage. But as a 16-year-old, what was my aim when I started to interact with a girl?
Yeah.
It wasn't so that I would enter into a 6, 7, 8 year long relationship with them and then maybe get married after that.
true.
Yeah.
It was, I have a desire that I want to be met right now.
Yeah.
And the reality is, so unfortunately, the reality is that most guys at 15, 16, 17, that is at the forefront of their mind. It's not, wow, I want to love and protect this young woman.
Yeah.
I want to serve them and love them for the next 8 years and then get engaged and start a family. Like, that is probably at the farthest depths of a 16-year-old boy's mind, And so,
Good to know. Good to
so
know.
it's important, when we're, 15, 16
Yeah.
years old, entering into relationships or wanting a relationship to ask that question, like, what's the aim of this?
Yeah.
I remember coming home one time and I was like to my mom, oh, I'm so in love with this man. And then mom's like, do you even know what love is? I'm like,
Yeah.
do I actually know what this actually means? Because it comes with like a huge sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Yeah.
Whatever that
definitely.
word. So I think like at that time, I'm like, I mean, to this day, I'm still figuring out what actually love is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like what you guys are saying is so true. It brings up the question of, and I don't think there's a right answer for this. I don't think that you can kind of have a blanket statement of, oh, everyone should start dating at this age. But I think there is that question of like, well, actually, like, should you be dating people? Should you have boyfriends and girlfriends when you're 13, 14, 15, 16? And maybe for some people that's right for them. But I don't know. What do you guys think? 13, 14, 15, 16. If you could go back.
I mean, I think our comments have spoken for themselves.
Yeah.
Really, I wasn't ready,
Yeah.
and I see a lot of young people that age, and I'm like, they're not ready either.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Not saying that all of them are ready or not, but
And I think it's difficult with that because we see in movies and in TV shows that there's this, storybook finish to,
Yeah.
Yes.
high school sweethearts.
Walk in the
Yeah.
park.
And that seems like, oh, that's the aim.
Yeah.
But it hardly ever is that. But
true.
I do know people who started dating when they were
Yeah.
15 years old and now they're married and they have children. So sometimes it work out. It's really dependent on the two people who are entering into a relationship. But I think for me, I would say, why not just wait? Like, what's the point? Why not focus on who you are and who you're becoming and
building that.
Yeah, and building that up, deciding who we want to be and strive to be the better version of ourselves. and then aim to become that person and then enter into a relationship.
I think, but don't you think also like culturally, there's different cultures that really you do start relationship early. You know, I think in some places, countries in Africa, you start relationship. You're sometimes a mother at 14. You know.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in different cultures are different. I'm not saying that be a mom at 14.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, if I was a mom at 14, I'd
No.
get but, So I think like if you are in a relationship now at 15, just make sure you have people around you that you have a good support, you know, and that you are asking yourself these questions like, is this a good, healthy relationship? And rechecking with people that are older, and just to have that guidance.
That's
and that,
great advice.
Yeah.
So I think that's my advice for
because
people.
I think it could sound like we're saying if you are in a relationship at 15, 16 that, oh, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's
No,
not
no,
necessarily the
no.
case.
Yeah.
It is always dependent on the two individuals who are in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where generally at 15, 14 years old, people aren't ready for that sort of commitment in order to love someone selflessly. But if you are in a relationship and it is healthy and it's building one another up and there seems to be a purpose and aim for it, like that was the design for a relationship,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it's so good to have that if you do have it. But I think even it can be found in relationships outside of romantic relationships.
Yeah.
I know that when I was 16 years old, I had really good guy friendships that were able to push me into becoming a better version of myself.
Yeah.
And that was super foundational for me becoming who I am today.
100%.
To have those friendships.
And I think like if I was to hit on anything, it would be what Nathaniel was saying earlier, which was that whole thing of like if you're in a relationship at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever age, to ask yourself the question of why.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. I think when you can reflect and go, okay, why am I in this relationship?
Yeah.
Is this relationship healthy? Am I in this because I really want to like have relationship and love the person and grow? Like, am I helping this person grow? Or actually are we just like feeding off of one another in a kind of unhealthy way because we're both insecure and don't know what we're doing and actually is limiting our development maybe even.
Yeah.
I think you have to like be honest with yourself, and some of that probably is also getting advice from people around you and talking to people around you.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I was in a very codependent relationship, and I think that is very toxic. And I think just go back to knowing yourself, and I think not depending on like if I don't have this person, who am I? Like, what am I going to do with my life? You know, if you're thinking like that, probably best to get out of that relationship. You know, so
Yeah, no, it's so good. So I think like for me, something that I really valued, like when I'd kind of worked through some of my immaturity issues, which obviously was always kind of a process, you know, it's not like you just like go like, oh, have one experience and then it's like, oh, I'm out of it and I'm good now. Like it was a process. But I think something also that I realized like the older I got that I really valued was having good friendships with guys.
Yes.
Was recognizing, because this is a whole nother thing, like in school, I think particularly, there can be such a pressure to date when you're good friends with a person.
Yeah,
because all of your friends start talking about it. Everyone's going, oh, but you guys hang out so much, you get on so well, why aren't you dating? And I think then it can kind of like feed this concept in your mind. And you're like, oh, well, is it weird for me to be friends with a girl? Like to be this good friends with a girl, is that like wrong? Should I be dating her? Did you guys have like pressure in school ever around those?
Yeah, I definitely did. When I was 17 years old, I became really good friends with this one girl. And for probably a year, we would just hang out like quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we weren't like texting every day and we weren't, dependent on one another for affection, but we would hang out 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And we would hang out with other friends, but it was quite obvious that her and I were closer than we were with some of the other friends. And that was so good for me in setting a standard of what like a good friendship with the opposite gender should be.
Yeah.
It was really beneficial because it was the first female friend that I had made where I could actually just be comfortable and like didn't have this goal that I wanted to, flirt with them or date them or whatever the goal was.
Yeah.
They were just my friend. And I remember having a lot of friends asking, well, oh, aren't you going to date? Like, why don't you date her? And I was like, no, actually, that's just not the goal. I don't see her like that.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay that we're like this. And we carried on like that.
Yeah.
I think for me, for the longest time, when I was younger, probably 16, I thought I couldn't have a guy friend, just like a guy friend, you know? Because I think, afraid being made fun of, like, oh, you just want to hang out with him because you want to be with him, and this pressure and people,
there's so much of
negativity
that.
comments, you know? But then I had to say to myself, I'm like, you know what? People are going to judge whether I'm, you know, hanging out with this guy or not, you know?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just like, if you do have guy friends, you know, and it's just strictly platonic, like just, you know, that's okay. Like, as long as you know yourself and you're, you know, you know where you two stand.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of my biggest fears. Like, I had this guy friend, but I was always scared to go out with him, like to the cinema or wherever, because I was scared that people were going to think we're dating.
Yeah.
And that's the insecurity of hearing people's negativity, you know?
And it's interesting because I think like Sione and I are both people who actually, both women who actually say we probably get on with guys generally better than we do girls.
I do.
And I think for me that was always the case. Like I always just really enjoyed, and maybe it was, I mean, you have loads of brothers. Like I only have 2 brothers, but I had 2 older brothers, 1 younger sister. My younger sister is like my best friend. But then I think there is something of like when you have like guys around quite a lot growing up, like you just like find it very easy to interact with them and easy to understand them, I think. And I think there's something also that is like so great about like guys and girls being friends, because I think we bring so many things like to friendship that like without like male friends, I just wouldn't have someone feeding into my life in that way.
Yes.
So true.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do you want to?
Sorry. No, I've got a little other avenue. So you
yes. I think that was part of the thing I loved. I think part of the reason I get on better with guys is that like they can like, you know, give me feedback on certain things. And also growing up with so many brothers, I was so nice. I would ask them questions like, hey, you know, when a guy does this or says this, like, hey, how am I coming off? Like, you know, and it was so nice. Like, and growing up with brothers and having guy friends, when I got over that insecurity, not being able to have friends, guys as friends, it was so nice to have them as a kind of bouncing off, what do you call it? Not ideas, but you know what I'm saying. Encouragement. Yes. Words are just like going off me. But yes. Go on.
Yeah, no, just on a little different avenue. Particularly, I was quite shy at school, and for me, I could easily gain the same validation with someone online. Yeah. And so, obviously, now we have the online, the tinternet.
Yes.
And so, like, I remember as a young guy, like, I was quite shy, so I'd see this beautiful girl at school, and I'd be like, oh wow, she's so cool. I'd be too shy to talk to her. Yeah. But I would be able to talk to her online, and I would have this relationship online. But actually, when I'd see her at school, I wouldn't talk to her, and I think that's very common actually.
Yeah.
And so I just want to speak into that, and I want to say like, I would say to my 15-year-old self, like, that's not a relationship. Relationship is kind of face to face,
showing your real
conversation instead of kind of fake.
And can I ask, like, why do you feel like? Because I think that is so true. Because even for me, when I reflect on myself when I was in school, I think there were a lot of guys who wouldn't necessarily talk to me that much in the day-to-day face-to-face, but suddenly it would be like you'd be on Facebook and it's like, wow, they like always want to chat. Like, why do you think it is that we like to hide behind, I guess, like the internet or like social media platforms?
I think it's just like it comes again with a lot of insecurities within yourself, and I think it's like, because I think I did that for a little bit too. Online, I could just, and you know, so as soon as somebody's looking at you, you're thinking all these things. Oh, do they like me? Do they? For me, at least, it was like, oh, my eyes are probably too wide, or like this, and all these things are going through my head. And so, all like when it's in person, you know, my heart's like, but behind this, it is kind of like a shelter, you know, that's just like blocking me from there, and it is insecurity, and I think that's something I had to overcome.
I know that I did that a lot as well when I was that age. And for me,
we've all been there.
So it's good to have something in common here.
For me, it was an aspect of control. That I was able to put forward what I wanted to put forward, not what I actually was. I was able to control what I was saying, how long it took me to say it, and what was being conveyed, you know, down to the T, down to the comma, down, you know, whatever it was. It was an aspect of control.
And it's so true that you have more control and things like that. Because I mean, I feel like probably we've all been left on the like long read message
Ooh,
where
true.
you're like waiting for a response.
You're just like looking at your time. Like, come on now.
I honestly remember being, like for me, so much of my, I hadn't thought about this, but like so much of my communications probably actually was online. And like even reading into all of those things. I remember when I was 16 deciding that I would never put like kisses, like X's at the end of messages, because I realized so many people I talked to like would like read so much into that, and that they would like, you'd send like 2 and they'd send like, 3, and then you have to send 4. And if you
Thousands,
send
like
3,
drama.
then they're sending less. Like, yeah, but it's like we have all these ways of like communicating. And I just remember being like, I'm just not going to send X's anymore, because I feel like I'm offending you if I send 1 less than you, and now there's like some sort of like unspoken tension. Like, I don't know.
No, it's so toxic, because for me also it's just like, okay, if I said this long message and then you get one word like K, I'm like,
Yeah.
like it's like so much insecurities go through this, and that's why it was so hard for me to like have a relationship through internet or computer or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just like messages. I was just like,
And it's like if you get
so
the
much more
full stop
insecurity.
at the end, then whoo, you in trouble.
All right. On a serious note, though, I have a question. Where do we draw the line, though, between just being a good friend and actually desiring to have good friends of the opposite gender, and this might actually be inappropriate to be this good a friend?
Yeah.
If I'm texting a girl 7 days a week for 2 hours a day, is that too far? If I'm not gonna date them, or if I don't feel like I should date them?
Yeah. Gosh, it's so hard, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, because I think like for me now, but this wasn't what I did at the time.
Yeah.
Like for me now, I would be like, if you're, and I definitely did that. Like I definitely had people who I was like texting them like every day.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything about it. I think I like to just assume that people were like, oh, we're just friends until you say otherwise, or until like he brings it up, and I can then just like, I have free reign to like be how I want to be and say whatever I want to say. Which isn't cool. Like it's not, because I think like now as I'm older, like looking back, I'd be like, oh, Naomi, like you should have like what I would call is like a crucial conversation. Like you should ask the person like, hey, I realize like we talk a lot, like more than most of my friends. We're really good friends. I really get on with you. I realize like we're literally talking every single day. And I just want to clarify, like, are there any feelings here? Or are we just friends? Because I think if I didn't have feelings for the guy that I was talking to, I never wanted to ask that, because I just didn't want to know if they liked me.
Right.
Because then I had to deal with the consequences of like, okay, now I'm gonna have to kind of hurt you and tell you that I don't like you back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think I think you were kind of saying it. It's like direct communication. I think it's like where we at. Like we've been talking. Like you said, 7 days a week sometimes. Like we've been talking a lot. I think you just need to assess for yourself. But I think I was in kind of a similar situation. Yeah. But like I was talking to a guy for a bit, and then I was just like, okay, like I don't know him that well, but like was asking a lot of personal questions, and I was like, hold on a second, is this like, what is this? Like, is this a friendship, or like, you're asking a lot of, and then it's good to set the like, this is just friendship, and I was like, okay, good to know.
That's good.
I think communication is huge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so true.
And I think obviously there's like one way that you can get around that very easily is like hang out in groups, have like multiple people that you're friends with. Do you know what I mean? Like don't just have like one guy that you're friends with as a girl. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And don't be exclusive. I think that's another thing. I think, and that's just in general, like honestly a rule for everything. Because I think we can be exclusive even in our like female friendship groups, or like male friendship groups. And I think just being wary of if you're starting to be exclusive, and if it's making people around you feel uncomfortable, like maybe actually you've gone a bit too far in your friendship, and that's something that you guys need to talk about, because it's starting to look like a relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. But it is tricky. It's hard.
It is tricky. Yep.
Yeah. And I think this is like brings me on to like probably one of the final questions, which is tied to this, is do you think guys and girls can be best friends?
Why not?
Yeah.
But I think you just have to kind of wait out. Like I said, like I think once one of you get into a relationship, then it changes.
Yeah. I
little
think
bit.
Yes. But here's why. I think all of the guys who have ended up becoming my best friend have also ended up becoming at some point, therefore my boyfriend, which I guess kind of is like going against the question as well. But I think like,
So be
I know,
forewarned.
I know people say that like you don't want to be in the friend zone. In my opinion, I think the friend zone's the end zone. Like I think if you want to like date
Hey.
someone, get married to someone, like starting off by being really good friends and actually becoming best friends potentially is awesome and like a really cool place to be. I think it would be weird if I was married and I had like a male best friend who was like as close to me as my husband. Do you know what I mean? Like that's when it's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, definitely I'm like, I think you can definitely be best friends with a guy. I just think my experience, it'll probably end up being like my boyfriend or the person I'm married to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's that thing of, for me and my personal opinion is, when you're friends like this, and then, okay, I think best friends is kind of leaning in a bit more.
Yeah.
And then they're going to lean in a bit more. Okay, we're best friends. And the
Yes.
the next thing is like, okay, are we going to date? And that's another thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just that intentionality of relationship. Am I being so intentional with this person that it's kind of maybe rising things in their heart?
Yeah.
It's going to rise things in my heart.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just seeing where your heart's at, really.
Yeah. So maybe not best friends with everyone, but definitely you can have very good guy friends even when you're dating and even when you're married.
Yeah.
I think, which is awesome.
Just making
Score.
it clear and and communication is always the key. Like
Yeah.
communicating
With every relationship.
just really clearly, like, okay, what do you think of me? Just being vulnerable and like, okay, are you into me? Am I into you? And asking yourself that question.
Yeah.
And it's back to that question of why. Why am I doing this? Why are we friends?
Yeah.
Really, like, why are we best
Going.
friends?
Yeah.
So,
good.
yeah.
I think it's just important that we understand that language and communication is a gift. It's a tool
Yes.
that we
True.
need to
Amen.
use. I think so often we just hold on to our words, but in friendship, in a romantic relationship, like we need to use our words so that we can all be on the same page with one another.
Yeah.
I feel like
And
we
try-
human just communicate, make everything so complicated. It really isn't. Just communicate.
Yeah. And I say, and try and make it face to face.
Yes.
Guys, that is all the time that we have today. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been super fun having you guys on the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having us.
sharing your experiences and your opinions. And yeah, hopefully this is going to be helpful for you guys, even when you're thinking about navigating friendships or relationships yourself in your life. You know, take what is good, leave what isn't. We're not pros at
So
it,
true. We're not pros.
yeah, we're just talking about it from our experience.
Yeah.
So it's not
So
going to
good.
be the same thing for everyone. But yeah, awesome. We'll see you next time.